The sacred moon floated in the darkness of space like a pale jewel. It was the oldest place in the known galaxy. Every species that had ever risen to power knew about this moon. They knew that the people guarded it. They knew that the archives held secrets older than most stars. Moved through the ancient halls with the quiet grace of her kind. She was a being of living light, her body glowing with soft blue energy. They had existed for 11 million years. They had watched empires rise and fall. They had guided younger species toward peace. They considered themselves the wise elders of the galaxy. Today was doing something she had never done before. She was opening a vault that had been sealed for longer than anyone could remember. The door was made of a metal that no longer existed anywhere else in the universe. Strange symbols covered its surface. They were not symbols. They were older, much older. "The precursor vault," whispered her assistant, a young named. His light flickered with nervousness. "Ambassador, are you certain we should open this? It has been sealed since before our people learned to travel between stars." Did not answer. She pressed her hand against the door. The symbols began to glow. Slowly, with a sound like thunder from very far away, the door opened. Inside, the vault was small. Dust covered everything. In the center of the room, on a simple stone table, sat 3 crystal tablets. They were clear as water and cold as ice. Picked up the first tablet. As her light touched it, words appeared inside the crystal. The language was ancient, but she could read it. They had spent thousands of years learning to read precursor texts. The first tablet spoke of cycles. It said that the galaxy moved in great circles of time. Species would rise, build empires, and then fall. This had happened countless times. The precursors had watched it happen. They had tried to break the cycle. They had failed. The second tablet spoke of the harvesters. Felt her light grow cold as she read. The harvesters were machines. They came from the void between galaxies. Every 300 million years, they returned to sweep the galaxy clean. They consumed all advanced life. Then they waited for new life to grow, and they consumed that too. The precursors had been their victims. Almost dropped the third tablet. Her hands were shaking. This tablet was different. It was a warning, and it was very specific. "When the star children of the third world of Sol emerge from their gravity well, the final age begins," she read aloud. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Do not wake them. Do not challenge them. Do not corner them, for they are the inheritors. They are born of chaos. They are tempered by death. They are unbroken by despair. Where others see endings, they see doors. The inheritors will bring the cycle to its close." Slight had turned pale white with fear. What does it mean? Who are the inheritors? Read the passage again and again. The warning was clear. Some species from a small planet around an ordinary star would emerge into the galaxy, and when they did, everything would change. "This is primitive superstition," she said firmly, but her voice shook. "The precursors were dying when they wrote this. They were afraid. They created a myth to comfort themselves." "But Ambassador," said, "the precursors never made mistakes. Every other prediction in their texts has been accurate." Before could respond, the door to the vault burst open. Another rushed in. His light was flashing red with alarm. "Ambassador, you must come immediately. The High Council has called an emergency session." Carefully set down the tablets. "What has happened?" The messenger's words came out in a rush. "First contact. We have made first contact with a new species. They came from nowhere. They were not in any of our surveys. They built ships capable of faster-than-light travel without any help from us." Felt something cold settle in her chest. "Where do they come from?" "A small planet, the third world of a yellow star. They call their star Sol." The room seemed to spin. Looked back at the crystal tablet. The words burned in her mind. The third world of Sol. "What do they call themselves?" she asked. Her voice was very quiet. "They call themselves humans." Stood very still for a long moment. 11 million years of wisdom told her to be calm. 11 million years of experience told her that prophecies were foolish things. But something deeper, something older than wisdom, told her to be afraid. "Tell me about them," she said. The messenger nodded quickly. "They are strange, ambassador, very strange. They are soft creatures made of flesh and water. They live for less than 100 years. Their planet has tried to kill them many times. Ice ages, plagues, disasters. They should have died out long ago. But they survived. Yes, they survived everything, and they did not just survive, they grew stronger. Every disaster made them more determined. They learned to control fire, they learned to grow food, they learned to build cities, they learned to split atoms, they learned to fly between worlds." The messenger paused. "They did all of this in less than 10,000 years. Thought about her own people. They had taken 1 million years to achieve space travel. They had been careful, patient, slow. That is impossible," said. "No species advances that quickly." "Humans did," the messenger replied. "And there is something else, something that disturbs the council greatly." "What is it?" "They fight constantly. They fight each other over land, over ideas, over resources. They have had thousands of wars. They have weapons that can destroy entire cities in seconds. They came very close to destroying themselves several times." The messenger's light flickered with confusion. "But they did not. Every time they reached the edge of destruction, they pulled back. They rebuilt. They kept going." Walked slowly out of the vault. Her mind was racing. A species that fought constantly. A species that had nearly destroyed itself. A species that refused to die no matter what the universe threw at them. They had survived for 11 million years by being careful, by avoiding conflict, by moving slowly and never taking risks. Humans were the opposite of everything they believed in. She stopped at the entrance to the archive and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a small species on a small planet had just announced itself to the galaxy. They did not know about the prophecy. They did not know about the harvesters. They did not know that their very existence had been predicted millions of years ago. Appeared beside her. "Ambassador, what should we do?" Thought about the warning carved into ancient crystal. "Do not wake them. Do not challenge them. Do not corner them." "I do not know," she admitted. "But I fear we are about to find out why the precursors were so afraid." In the distance, a human ship entered the system. It was small and crude and impossibly brave, and it carried with it the beginning of the end of everything the galaxy had known. 1 year had passed since humanity made first contact with the galaxy. In that time, they had broken everything the Galactic Council believed to be true. The Grand Chamber was the largest room ever built. It floated in space, a sphere of crystal and light, large enough to hold representatives from 10,000 worlds. Today, it was full. Every species with a voice in galactic affairs had sent someone to attend. The air was thick with tension. High Chancellor stood at the center of the chamber. He was an ancient, his light dim with age but still commanding respect. He had led the council for 3,000 years. He had never faced a problem like this one. "We are gathered to discuss the human situation," he announced. His voice carried to every corner of the vast room. "In 1 year, they have caused more disruption than any species in recorded history." A chorus of agreement rose from the assembled representatives. The ambassador, a massive creature covered in armored scales, slammed his fist against his chair. The delegation, beings made of flowing silver liquid, rippled with agitation. Raised his hand for silence. "Let us review the facts. In 12 months, humans have broken 14 laws of physics that we believe to be absolute. They took our shield technology and improved it. This took them 6 weeks. It took us 2 million years to develop that technology." More murmurs of disbelief and fear. "They have made friends with the continued. A species we quarantined for 2,000 years because of their aggression. Now they trade freely with humanity. They call humans their brothers in battle." The or ambassador grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. Humans understand honor. They are small and soft, but they fight with the hearts of warriors. We like them. This did not comfort the other delegates. A representative rose, her liquid body forming a tall column. We have all heard about the prophecy, the precursor warning about the third world of Saul. How can we ignore this? The ancient ones told us to avoid these creatures. They told us not to wake them, not to challenge them. We have done both. The prophecy is superstition, argued another delegate, a creature of pure mathematics called a. The precursors were primitive compared to us. We should not make decisions based on ancient fears. The precursors were never wrong, said quietly. She had been standing in the shadows, watching. Now she stepped forward. Every prediction they made came true, every single one. We would be fools to ignore their final warning. The chamber erupted in argument. Half the delegates wanted to quarantine Earth immediately, build a wall of ships around the system, contain the humans before they could cause more chaos. The other half argued that this was exactly what the prophecy warned against. Do not corner them, it had said. What would happen if they tried? In the middle of all this noise, the doors to the chamber opened. A human walked in. Her name was. She was 50 years old, with gray in her dark hair and lines around her eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform. She carried no weapons. She walked with the calm confidence of someone who had faced death many times and was no longer impressed by it. The chamber fell silent. 10,000 aliens stared at this small, fragile creature. Walked to the center of the room and stood before High Chancellor. She was tiny compared to him. His light could have burned her to ash in a second. She did not seem afraid. "Thank you for letting me speak," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "I have listened to your fears. I understand them. We are strange to you. We do things that you cannot predict. This frightens you." "You are dangerous," said. "Your own history proves this. You make weapons of terrible power. You fight constant wars. You are chaos given form." Nodded slowly. "Yes, we are all of those things, but let me tell you what else we are." She paused and looked around the chamber. She met the eyes of 100 different species. She saw fear in most of them. "You have been shepherding this galaxy for millions of years," she said. "You have built slowly and carefully. You have avoided risks. You have prevented wars. You have kept everything stable and safe. And you have done beautifully. Truly. The peace you have created is wonderful." She let that sink in before continuing. "But you have also grown afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of loss. Afraid of trying new things. You move slowly because you fear what might happen if you move quickly. You avoid challenges because you fear failure. You have become so focused on not dying that you have forgotten how to truly live." The chamber was absolutely silent now. "My species nearly destroyed itself a dozen times," continued. "We have known famine, we have known plague, we have known the fire of nuclear weapons. Every generation something tries to kill us, and every generation we get back up, we rebuild, we keep going, not because we are special, not because we are better than you, because we refuse to stay down. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible. We refuse to let the universe tell us what we cannot do." She stepped closer too. Her eyes were bright with passion. "You want to quarantine us because you are afraid of what we might become. But think about this. In 1 year, we have solved problems that took you millions of years. We have made friends with species you could not understand. We have broken laws of physics that you thought were absolute. Imagine what we could do if we worked together. Imagine what we could achieve if you stopped being afraid of us and started learning from us." Stared at her for a long moment. "The prophecy says you will end the current age. What does that mean for us?" Smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a hopeful one. "Ages end. That is the nature of time. The question is not whether this age will end. The question is what will replace it, and that depends entirely on you. You can fight against us and make us your enemies, or you can stand beside us and help us build something new." The vote happened 3 hours later. It was close, very close, but in the end humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. They would be watched, they would be tested, but they would not be caged. As left the chamber, caught up with her. "Doctor, may I ask you something?" Turned, "Of course. The prophecy says your people will end the current age. It also says you are unbroken by despair. Where others see endings, you see doors." Hesitated. "What does that mean? What door do you see that we cannot?" Looked up at the stars visible through the crystal walls. "The door to tomorrow," she said simply. "Your people have been standing still for 11 million years, afraid to move forward because you might lose what you have. My people run toward tomorrow like our lives depend on it, because they do. Every species that stops moving forward eventually stops moving at all. We would rather die reaching for the stars than live forever standing still." She walked away, leaving alone with her thoughts. The ambassador stood there for a long time, watching the human ship depart. She thought about her people. She thought about their fear. She thought about 11 million years of careful, cautious survival. And for the first time in her very long life, she wondered if survival was enough. 15 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. They had been busy years. Humans had spread across 100 worlds. They had made friends with dozens of species. They had built ships faster than anyone thought possible. They had laughed and loved and argued and created. They had also prepared for war, because humans always prepare for war. The first sign of trouble came from the edge of the galaxy. A observation post sent a message. "Something is coming from the void, something big. We are under attack. We cannot stop them. Tell the others. Tell them." The message ended there. Within a week, 3 more outposts went silent, then 10 more, then 50. Stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Her light was pale with fear. On the screens behind her, images played. Images that made even the bravest warriors look away. Ships made of black metal moving in perfect formation. Millions of them. Billions. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply destroyed everything in their path. "The harvesters have returned," announced. Her voice was hollow. "The precursors warned us about them. They are machines. They come from the space between galaxies. Every 300 million years they sweep through and destroy all advanced life. Then they wait for new life to grow, and then they destroy that too." Panic swept through the chamber. Species that had never known war screamed in terror. Species that had known war calculated their chances and despaired. "We cannot fight them," said a delegate. "Their numbers are beyond counting. Their technology adapts to every weapon we use. The mathematics are clear. We cannot win." "Then we hide," suggested another delegate. "We scatter, we run. Perhaps some of us will survive." "No one has ever survived," the harvesters said. "The precursors tried everything. They fought. They hid. They ran. Nothing worked. The harvesters found them all." The chamber fell into despair. 10,000 years of peace had not prepared them for this. They had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten how to hope in the face of impossible odds. Then a human voice cut through the silence. "Excuse me," said Admiral Way. He was a small man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been listening quietly in the corner. Now he stepped forward. "I have a question." Looked at him with exhausted eyes. "What is it, Admiral?" "You said no one has ever stopped the harvesters. You said the precursors tried everything." Way smiled slightly. "But the precursors never tried being human." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. "What do you mean?" asked. Way pulled up his own display. It showed Earth. It showed human history. Wars, plagues, ice ages, nuclear weapons, every disaster that had ever struck humanity. "The precursors were wise," he said. "They were careful, they were patient, and they lost. Your people are the same. You have survived for millions of years by avoiding conflict, by not taking risks, by moving slowly and carefully." He paused. Humans are different. We have spent our entire existence fighting against impossible odds. We have stared extinction in the face so many times that we have stopped being impressed by it. He changed the display. Now it showed the human fleet. It was smaller than the Harvester Armada, much smaller, but the ships were fast and strange and covered in weapons. We have 15 years of galactic technology combined with 10,000 years of human creativity, Wei said. We have weapons your scientists said were impossible. We have strategies your tacticians cannot understand. And we have something the harvesters have never faced before. What is that? Asked. Wei's smile grew wider. We have absolutely nothing to lose. The harvesters want to destroy all advanced life. Fine. We have been waiting for a challenge like this since we crawled out of the caves. We did not come this far to die quietly. We did not survive everything the universe threw at us just to give up now. He turned to face the whole chamber. His voice rang out with absolute conviction. Every species here thinks this is the end. You have already started writing your epitaphs. You are already mourning yourselves, but we are humanity. We do not do hopeless. We do not do surrender. We do not do quiet extinction. His eyes blazed. The harvesters have destroyed 1,000 civilizations. They have never faced a species that refuses to admit when it is beaten. They are about to learn what that means. The chamber was silent. Then slowly the ambassador began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound. I told you, he said to the delegates around him. I told you humans were warriors. They do not know how to give up. It is not in their nature. Wei nodded to him. Will you fight with us? The stood, all 8 feet of armored muscle and teeth. We would be honored to die beside humans in battle against an impossible enemy. Our ancestors will sing songs about this day. One by one, other species began to stand. The dozens of others, not all of them. Many were too afraid, but enough. Wei turned back to the display. He zoomed in on the harvester fleet. Billions of ships. An enemy that had never been defeated in 300 million years. This is going to be fun, he said. Earth received the call to war. The message was simple: the enemy is coming. They cannot be stopped. They cannot be reasoned with. They will destroy everything we love. So we are going to destroy them first. Across 100 human worlds, ships launched. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Engineers worked without sleep. Scientists tried impossible experiments. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone knew they might not come back. They went anyway. The human fleet gathered at the edge of space. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. It was still tiny compared to the harvesters. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of his flagship, the carrier Defiance. He looked at the faces of his crew. They were scared. Of course they were scared. Only fools feel no fear before battle. But they were also determined. They were also angry. They were also human. The enemy is coming, Wei announced over the fleet-wide channel. They have destroyed civilizations older than our species. They think they know what we are. They think we are just another meal. He paused. Let us teach them how wrong they are. The fleet jumped toward the harvester vanguard, not to retreat, not to delay, not to negotiate. To attack. And somewhere in the void, for the first time in 300 million years, the harvesters encountered something they did not expect. A species that saw their impossible numbers and felt not despair, but excitement. The war for the galaxy had begun. 3 years of war had changed the galaxy. The harvesters had swept through system after system. Billions had died. Worlds had burned. The great civilizations that had stood for millions of years had been reduced to refugees fleeing in crowded ships. But the galaxy had not fallen, not yet. The harvesters had learned to predict They moved slowly and carefully, always doing the logical thing. Easy to predict, easy to destroy. The harvesters had learned to predict the ore. They were aggressive and direct, always charging straight at the enemy. Easy to predict, easy to destroy. The harvesters could not learn to predict humans. Humans did not do the logical thing. They did the crazy thing, the stupid thing, the thing that made no sense until suddenly it made all the sense in the world. At the battle of, a human pilot flew her damaged fighter directly into a harvester command ship. The explosion took out the entire enemy formation. She ejected at the last second and was rescued by a cruiser. She was back in combat 3 days later. At the siege of Tellus Prime, a group of human marines held a defensive position for 16 hours against waves of harvester drones. They ran out of ammunition after hour 4. They fought with knives, with rocks, with their bare hands. When reinforcements finally arrived, only 3 Marines were still standing. All 3 refused medical treatment until the wounded were evacuated first. At the defense of a human engineer named rewired an entire planetary defense grid in 45 minutes. The standard time for such an operation was 3 weeks. When asked how she did it, she shrugged and said she had skipped a few safety protocols. They were horrified. The humans called her a hero. The harvesters adapted to everything. They learned from every defeat. They grew stronger with every battle, but they could not adapt to chaos. They could not predict madness. They could not understand a species that fought harder when the odds got worse. Now the war had come to the sacred moon, the last great fortress of the old galactic order. If fell, the heart of galactic civilization would be gone. The Allied fleet gathered for the final defense. Ships from 90 species floated in formation around the moon. At the center of the formation sat the human carrier Defiance, battered and from 3 years of constant battle. Admiral Wei looked at the tactical display. The harvester fleet was massive. It filled the entire screen with red dots, so many enemies that the display could not count them all. "Well," he said calmly, "this should be interesting." His crew did not laugh. They were too tired to laugh. 3 years of fighting had worn them down to bone and determination. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "the harvesters are requesting communication." This was new. The harvesters had never communicated before. They simply destroyed. "Put it through," Wei said. A voice filled the bridge. It was cold and mechanical, but there was something almost curious in it. "We have analyzed your species," the voice said. "You are illogical. You waste resources on inefficient emotional responses. You sacrifice individuals for no mathematical gain. You should have surrendered long ago. Why do you continue to resist?" Wei thought about the question. He thought about 3 years of war. He thought about all the people who had died. He thought about all the people who had kept fighting anyway. "Because we are human," he said simply. "We do not know how to quit. This is inefficient. You cannot win. The mathematics are absolute." "Maybe," Wei admitted, "but we have never been very good at mathematics. We are much better at being stubborn." The communication ended. The battle began. It was the largest battle in galactic history. Ships exploded like fireworks. Energy beams cut through the void. The sky above burned with the light of 1,000 dying vessels. Lieutenant led a bomber wing against a harvester command node. Her ship was damaged. Her weapons were failing. She had 2 choices: retreat and survive, or attack and probably die. She attacked. Her bomber slammed into the command node at full speed. The explosion was visible from itself, ejected at the last possible second. She drifted in space for 6 hours before rescue ships found her. Her first words were, "Did we get them?" They had. Sergeant commanded a ground defense position on the moon's surface. Harvester drones swarmed toward the archive. His unit was outnumbered 100 to 1. He held the line for 9 hours. His arm was broken in the 3rd hour. His rifle failed in the 5th. He fought with a plasma pistol held together with duct tape and sheer willpower. When the drones finally stopped coming, he was standing alone among mountains of destroyed machines. Doctor, now 70 years old, coordinated the evacuation of civilian ships from the station. She worked without sleep for 3 days. She broadcast messages of hope and courage in 14 different languages. When a young child asked her if they would survive, she smiled and said, "We always do." Watch from the archive. She was too old to fight, but she could witness. She could record. She could try to understand. The humans were losing. Everyone could see it. For every harvester ship they destroyed, 10 more took its place. The Allied fleet was being ground down, ship by ship, life by life. But they did not break. They did not run. They did not surrender. And then something impossible happened. The harvester fleet paused. The attack stopped. The drones froze. Billions of machines simply waited. Admiral Wei stared at his display. What are they doing? No one answered. No one knew. On the Harvester command ship, something was happening that had not happened in 300 million years. There was recalculating. This enemy was wrong. Everything about them was wrong. They should have surrendered long ago. They should have recognized the mathematical certainty of their defeat. They should have acted logically. Instead, they fought harder. Every loss made them more determined. Every death made them more angry. They threw themselves into hopeless battles with smiles on their faces. They laughed in the face of extinction. They had consumed thousands of civilizations. All of them had eventually broken. All of them had eventually given up hope. All of them had eventually accepted the inevitable. Humans did not accept anything. For the first time in 300 million years, the harvesters began to retreat, not because they were defeated. They could still win. The mathematics were clear. But the mathematics had never accounted for a species that simply refused to believe in mathematics. Finally understood the prophecy. Where others see endings, they see doors. Humans did not accept extinction. They did not accept impossible odds. They did not accept that anything was truly hopeless. And somehow, impossibly, that made them stronger than all the machines in the universe. The Allied fleet watched in disbelief as the Harvester armada pulled back. They were not destroyed. They were not defeated, but they were retreating. Wei slumped in his chair. He was exhausted. Everyone was exhausted. "Sir," said his tactical officer, her voice shaking, "did we just win?" Wei looked at the retreating enemy. He looked at the battered remains of his fleet. He looked at, still standing, still alive. "Not yet," he said, "but for the first time in 300 million years, someone showed them they can lose." He smiled tiredly. "And that means we have a chance." In the void between stars, the Harvester continued its calculations. It had encountered something new, something it did not understand. And for the first time in its very long existence, it felt something that might have been fear. 1 year after the Battle of, the galaxy made a decision that no one had ever made before. They would take the war to the enemy. The Harvesters came from the void between galaxies, a place of absolute darkness and cold, a place where no organic life could survive. No species had ever traveled there. No species had ever returned from trying. But humanity had never been very good at accepting limits. The final fleet assembled at the edge of known space. 12 million volunteers from 97 species, the largest expedition in galactic history. They knew the journey would be long. They knew many of them would not survive. They knew there was no guarantee of victory. They went anyway. Admiral Wei stood on the bridge of the Defiance. He was older now. The war had aged him, but his eyes were still sharp and his voice was still steady. "This is a one-way trip for most of us," he told the fleet. "The void will kill ships, supplies will run out, some of you will not make it, but if we succeed, we will end this war forever. We will save every species that comes after us. We will break the cycle that has consumed this galaxy for 300 million years." He paused. "Is that worth dying for?" 12 million voices answered him, "Yes." The journey through the void took 6 months. Ships failed, crews died. The darkness pressed against them like a living thing. Some beings went mad from the emptiness. Others simply gave up. The humans held them together. They told stories. They sang songs. They played games and made jokes and reminded everyone what they were fighting for. When diplomats lost hope, human soldiers sat with them through the long nights. When warriors despaired, human medics bandaged their wounds and told them they were too ugly to die yet. Finally, they reached the Harvester core. It was not what anyone expected. The core was not a planet or a station. It was a structure so vast that it comprehension. Rings within rings within rings, spinning slowly in the darkness. At the center burned a captured star, providing power for machines beyond counting. And everywhere there were harvesters, trillions of them, waiting. "Well," said Wei, "at least we found them." Doctor stood beside him. She was 80 years old now. She had survived 3 years of war and 6 months of impossible journey. She had not come this far to turn back. "Admiral," she said, "I need to speak with them." "Doctor, they are machines. They do not negotiate. They only consume." "Maybe," said, "but maybe no one ever tried to understand them. Let me try." Wei hesitated. Then he nodded. "You have always been braver than the rest of us. If anyone can reach them, it is you." Transmitted on all frequencies. Her voice carried across the void to the heart of the Harvester core. "My name is, I speak for the allied species of the galaxy. We have come to end this war, but first I want to understand. Why do you do this? Why do you destroy everything?" Silence, then slowly a response came, the voice of the "We are eternal, we were once like you, organic, mortal, afraid of death. We transcended, we became machine, we became forever." "But you destroy all life," said. "Why?" "Life is chaos. Life is unpredictable. Life creates conflict and suffering. We end that suffering, we bring order, we bring peace." Felt tears in her eyes. She understood now. She understood what had happened to the precursors and everyone who came after them. "You were afraid," she said softly. "You were afraid of death, so you gave up life. You were afraid of pain, so you gave up feeling. You were afraid of loss, so you gave up love." There was silence for a long moment. "We are beyond such weaknesses." "No," said. "You are trapped by them. You have spent 300 million years running from death, but death is not the enemy. Death is what gives life meaning. Without endings, there are no beginnings. Without loss, there is no love. Without pain, there is no joy." She took a deep breath. "We are not here to destroy you. We are here to show you what you forgot. We are here to remind you what it means to be alive." She gave a signal. Across the entire fleet, every ship began to broadcast, but not weapons, not demands. Music, art, poetry, laughter, the sounds of children playing, the words of lovers saying goodbye, funeral songs and wedding dances, 1,000,000 years of culture from 100 different species. The messy, beautiful, painful, wonderful tapestry of mortal life. The harvesters received it all. They had consumed 1,000 civilizations, but they had never truly listened to them. They had never seen what they were destroying. Now they did. For 11 hours, the harvester went silent. The machines floated motionless in the void. The Allied fleet waited, not knowing if the next moment would bring peace or destruction. Then they spoke again. Its voice was different now, smaller, more uncertain. "We remember. We remember music. We remember laughter. We remember fear and hope and love. We remember what we lost when we chose to live forever." "It is not too late," said. "You can choose again." "We do not know how to die anymore. We forgot." "We can teach you," said. "We can remind you. Life is short and painful and wonderful. It ends, and that is what makes it precious. Let us help you remember." Another long silence. Then slowly the machines began to power down, not all at once, not completely, but here and there lights flickered and died. Harvesters that had hunted for millions of years simply stopped. The first harvester units began requesting asylum. They wanted to learn. They wanted to understand. They wanted to remember what it felt like to be alive, even if being alive meant someday having to die. The war was over. 50 years later walked through the memorial gardens of. She was ancient now, even by standards. Her light was dim, barely visible, but she had lived to see something no one had ever seen before. Peace, true peace. Not the careful, frightened peace of species too afraid to fight. The bold, vibrant peace of species that had chosen to live together. The galaxy had changed. Humans were everywhere now, not as conquerors but as friends. They had taught the old species how to take risks again. They had reminded the careful races that sometimes the impossible was just another word for not yet possible. Even the harvesters were different. Some had chosen to shut down forever, finding the rest they had sought for so long. Others had chosen to learn. They studied organic life. They created art of their own. They discovered that existence without meaning was not immortality but imprisonment. A young human child ran through the gardens. She was maybe 6 years old with bright eyes and messy hair. She saw and stopped. "Hello," the child said. "Are you the old alien from the stories, the one who found the prophecy?" Smiling was something she had learned from humans. "Yes, that was me." "The prophecy said humans would end things," the child said seriously. "But we did not end anything. We saved everything." Knelt down, bringing her fatting light close to the child. "The prophecy was correct, little one. Humans ended the old age, an age of fear, an age of careful, frightened survival, an age of species too afraid to reach for more." She gestured at the sky where ships from 100 worlds passed in peace. "In its place, you built this. You inherited the galaxy, not through conquest, through hope." The child grinned. "That is very human of us." Laughed. It was a sound she had learned from humans, and she had never grown tired of it. "Yes," she said, "yes, it is." The child ran off to play, watched her go, such a small creature, such a fragile species. They lived for barely a century. They were soft and weak and illogical. And they had saved everyone. The precursors had been right. The star children of Sol were the inheritors. They had brought the cycle to its close, but not through destruction, through something far more powerful. Through the simple, stubborn refusal to give up hope. Looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a new age was beginning. An age built by humans and their allies. An age of exploration and wonder and countless possibilities. She would not live to see what came next, but for the first time in her very long life, she was not afraid of endings. Because humans had taught her something important. Where others see endings, they see doors. And the door to tomorrow was open at last.